Was this realm created for us? In the years 1611 to 1623, we see the introduction of Shakespeare and the Bible seeming to have been written in the same hand, and to this day some of the most glorious use of language, similar to what we see with everything in the past, the most wondrous works of art and architecture also coming out of this era, surpassing anything that we produce today. And it seems there is a hidden code of language to those with eyes to see and ears to hear, seeming to be the beginning of our time. And yet these early literary works would shape the future to our present date. What will we look at today? The North Pole and the southern reaches of our realm pertaining to the admiral bird, and we'll discuss lands beyond our lands, tying in with the reflection of the plasma moon, and if viewed from the right perspective, may be revealing lands of old, seldom spoken about today, and yet may exist just beyond the reaches of the average person. We'll also talk about Tartaria and compare the modern day definitions to those in the 1700s in a common day encyclopedia. And finally, we'll talk about Genghis Khan and who he may truly have been, along with an excellent comment left in last week's video pertaining to the question that is asked so often, being why, if all of this is true, don't the Native Americans tell us that any of these wonders were here, especially pertaining to North America? And we'll get to that in a bit. Welcome. I'm thankful for inspiration. I don't know where it comes from. I might see hundreds of mind-blowing things and not be inspired to share it. I usually attribute that to my laziness. And then something comes along and suddenly we feel like we must share. Again, I don't know why. But here I was just watching a video by Robert Zepper, always putting out fascinating content. And today he's sharing one titled Invading Antarctica, Secret South Pole Colony. And I've heard the story time and time again for years now. At first I was uninterested, and I began watching anyway. And before long, I realized this is one of the most fascinating things I could share, even though it's old news. Why was I not excited about it? I once had been, but perhaps we're all saturated with so much stimulus that even the mind-blowing becomes mundane. And so whether you've heard this before or not, let's review the story real quick. First, the admiral bird flies over the South Pole for the first official time, discovers lands and tells us about lands beyond the lands, and everyone's very excited. Then he goes back in 1946 or 47, and this time they're looking for a secret Nazi base, we're told. This is called Operation High Jump. And we're told he does find this base, and he finds a whole lot more than he bargained for. All sorts of craft, what we would call UFOs. Took down many of his planes, and he was forced to retreat. On his way back, he was interviewed by a South American newspaper before he would return to the United States, and he gave an incredible first-hand account of what he saw. And naturally he was shaken up, and even before returning to the United States, declared that defenses should be put in place around Antarctica and begin to prepare for World War III, which will be fought with an enemy coming from this region, seeming to be another race. And upon returning, he immediately became ill and was hospitalized and silenced, really lending to the idea that the enemy was already within. And absolutely fascinating. A big missing part of the puzzle when talking about the control structure in the present and perhaps in the past. This realm, of course, is off limits to us, the only treaty honored by most all nations, held for almost 50 years, keeping all people away, exclusive to scientific research only. In my opinion, unacceptable. Who are these people to tell us we can't visit this icy landmass? I'd like to see a grand protest. And I think what we find is, wherever you are in this realm, if you go south, you'll hit a wall. And this wall will seem like a prison. But not the point of this video. This realm is off limits. And unlike this big white icy mass that they show us, is actually full of greenery and lakes and all kinds of wonders. But they don't want us to know that. Similar to what we see up in the northern regions on older maps. A glorious continent consisting of 4 parts and 4 rivers and a Mount Meru in the center, shown on most all old maps, almost connected to the northern part of Greenland. And this too is a forbidden landmass. Here I think we have a better chance of having a peek, chartering some expedition. And finally, while talking about extra landmass, I want to jump over to this channel that I featured before. And this channel does something similar to WIM with the crater Earth theory, but in this particular case, the whole realm is depicted on the moon, a reflection of what is below, now seen above. And I'm going to keep this quick, and here is what we typically see, and you can see what he's done. Change the angle a bit, and we get this. Again, I want to be clear and back up and show you exactly what is on the moon. And now a reverse image, and we get this map. And here what we can see is the Americas and Australia way over here, Asia and Europe, and now he shows us all kinds of extra lands all around. Again, no doubt, if we were to travel south, we would hit this ice wall, even depicted in this channel's map. And here we see Atlantis, and here a little closer, such a map would help explain the strange flight routes. And here we see Lemuria and Hyperborea in the center here. Really mind-blowing. Not too different from a lot of the older maps, but the fact that this map was created with a reverse image of our moon is really astounding, and I salute this channel for his work, and I'll leave the link below. Let me know what you think. And this was pretty interesting on stolenhistory.net now, posted last September, and he was showing how the definition of Tartary in the Encyclopedia Britannica in 1771 is very different than the definition in modern Wikipedia. And let's look at the one in modern Wikipedia first. Tartary, or Great Tartary, was a name used from the Middle Ages until the 20th century to designate the great tract of northern and central Asia stretching from the Caspian Sea and the Ural Mountains to the Pacific Ocean, settled mostly by Turco-Mongol peoples after the Mongol invasion and the subsequent Turkic migrations. And now back in 1771, the Encyclopedia Britannica tells us, Tartary, a vast country in the northern parts of Asia, bounded by Siberia on the north and west. This is called Great Tartary. The Tartars who lie south of Muscovy and Siberia are those of Astrakhan, Circassia, and Dagestan, situated northwest of the Caspian Sea. The Kalmuk Tartars, who lie between Siberia and the Caspian Sea, the Uzbek Tartars and Mongols, who lie north of Persia and India, and lastly, those of Tibet, who lie northwest of China. There we go. Encyclopedia Britannica, 1771. So here, clearly, telling us of the different types of Tartars and their particular regions. And down here in Wiki, simply a great tract of land and a primitive Turco-Mongol people. No talk of a great nation, as we see in 1771. Very fascinating. And here they go on to show the CIA declassified document I've spoken about before. If it's true, a proof of the rewriting of history, less a tactic to affect the Americas in this case, and more so the Muslims, an effort to rewrite their history. And here, of course, is Genghis Khan in the eyes of the Western narrative. And here we see Genghis Khan in 15th and 18th century books. And his wife. Here's some more. Some might say this is Jesus down here. But I don't think Jesus would bother with a crown or any worldly luxuries. Nevertheless, we're told this is Genghis Khan. Not at all what we saw up there on the top. And here is Timur, depicted by the West. And here we see him in 1402, or I-402. And it looks like he was the emperor of Tartary and died. I'm not sure. And I always talk about what may a Tartarian have looked like, dressed like. And this is all very unique of a people and time. And could he have been one of the 6 grandfathers? The one that was chiseled off, that I called the old wizard in a past video, one of the 6 grandfathers, or 6 kings, or Vikings, whatever you want to call them, they seem to hold a place in time. And of course, I don't know. This is really the first time I've come across this character. And Khan, as we've seen, meant king in Tartarian. But nevertheless, old important characters, not only depicted as different looking in modern times, but also unimportant. And I think there's a lot more to these characters in our history. And here was a very interesting comment by Wright Patterson. He says, I may have mentioned before that my mother's side of the family are Muskogee Creek American Indian. My maternal grandmother was the last full blood in our family. Those of us who are honest Indians will admit to you that our ancestors did not build all these mounds down here in southeast United States. They were built by an earlier civilization of taller, whiter-skinned people. How do we know? Because that information was passed down through ages, but many insist they were built by natives for whatever selfish reasons. And this is a very fascinating account. Many people ask or comment on the idea that if all of this research was true, Native Americans would have something to say about it. And sometimes the setting isn't right to just come out and say something. Where are you going to say it? Certainly not at home. Nobody cares at home. Not at the supermarket. Not on the bus. But somewhere like this, with a group of people in a small corner of a large platform, openly sharing and discussing these ideas without judgment or prejudice. And then truth has the right soil to grow. But this is just one person. Here he goes on to comment on how his family feel about this information. And he says, yeah, if you tell my cousins and uncles, they'll get all mad and call you a history rebuker because they've been fully indoctrinated and acclimated to believe everything they're taught. Such a shame, and we know this all too well with our own families and friends. And I had one more on this subject. We have a comment here by Ishmael, and he says the Native Americans did talk about the old buildings and how they repaired them after the originals left. Check out A Celtic Basque Civilization Erased from History on Stolen History. Always a favorite. We'll have to check that out. And also a book, To the American Indian by Lucy Thompson. So that's it. I thank you for joining me this week, and do have a blessed day. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And here I wanted to leave you with the sound of power lines. Very water-like.